we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. This is episode. Wait, Brian never tells me the episode number, so I never know. But we are excited. Go
at this
for it,
point,
Brian.
it's a little hard to give you an episode number because we're not sure when this one's going to come out in terms of order with the other ones.
Okay. Well, I've been excited about this because we caused a real uproar with the Steph from Deftones episode, and Steph quoted, and as a source and someone that he follows in this flat earth belief or whatever, I don't know, is it a lifestyle? We have Dave Weiss on the show. He's here. What do you call it, Dave? You're a free thinker.
Looking at reality and not believing the bullshit we're taught.
All right. And then to be our space guy in this discussion, because I really don't want to let go of space. And I know, Dave, you said I don't have to let go of the aliens and everything. But Craig, we got Craig. It's Lo Sicaro or Lo Sierra. You say that your last name.
You East Coast guys should know because it's Italian. It's Lo Cicero. But if you were in Italy, it'd be Lo Cicero. If you're actually in Italy, which we are not. And so, yeah, it's Craig Lo Cicero.
Welcome,
and I'm
Craig.
You know what? Space guy. Like, I've been called a lot of things, but that's a new one to me. But as it was said to you, I'm somebody that's kind of, I have these conversations with a lot of friends and a lot of people, like, really smart people that I know. We've had some very deep conversations. And one of the smartest people I know is Gene Hoglan. And if you ever talk to Gene about any of this stuff, his dad worked for NASA. It did a lot of work in that area. He was an astrophysicist and that kind of stuff. So, I grew up around some smart people, so a little bit, but I'm not that smart. I play metal. What the fuck, I play guitar. I'm a rock and roll. You know what?
Your name came up multiple times. We had Tom Maxwell on the show from Hell Yeah. Shout out to Tom. And we were getting into this stuff. And I was saying to Tom that when I first was dismissive of flat earth theory or whatever, people who were down for flat earth, I was being bombarded on Twitter and I thought they were trolling. But then I started looking into it and I was like, you know what? All I know is that I don't know.
There you go. That's more than most.
Operation Ivy. Operation Ivy.
Shout out to
covered that song.
Hard, yeah. And so when your name came up, I thought, okay, we can try. Let's not be so. At least this is my thinking. Let's not be so married to any one idea where if someone brings us new evidence, we can't accept it. So that's why I thought you would be a good person to talk to with Dave, and I can kind of ask questions, learn from both of you, and moderate somewhat of not a debate, but a discussion.
No, we're having a discussion. It's a discussion among friends.
Yeah, it's a discussion amongst friends, new friends. And I want to kind of set the table a little bit. Dave and I talked. We went off on another side. We had a little side table, and we talked about it. And I kind of feel like, Jamie, and you can. I mean, if it's just about trying to convince each other or anything, I don't know that anybody's going to do that because I think, he's a very smart guy. I listen to his shows. A lot of smart people believe in all kinds of things. Some, connect with others. Some don't connect with others.
Belief is the enemy of knowing. That's what we're going to discuss today.
That's hard. I'm gonna have to use that as a fucking album title, Dave. That's great.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. That's pretty metal. Did you know you were metal, Dave? Did you?
Dave, you're metal.
That's actually from the Crow 777 radio show, and one of the people that runs that show is super into metal. So maybe that's where it came from.
Well, this is about as metal podcast as you can get right here.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
What?
But Dave, Oh yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I was just going to say to kind of put a perspective on this, like where I'm coming from, just because we know that Dave runs a pretty reputable, podcast for this, and I listened to a few of his shows, and I listened to the multiple layers of the onion there. So what I was saying is, I feel like that the best thing that we can do, Jamie, is to have a discussion that really talks about where it goes from what he believes and where that goes from what we believe. Like, in other words, to try to convince each other that this is reality and this isn't. I don't know if that's as fun as talking about, since that is your reality, what happens outside the bubble? What is your reality outside this thing that we think is space? I want to know that kind of stuff. And just last thing I want to say is kind of why people think of me in this way is because I actually used to have a podcast about 10 years ago called the Omega Wave Show. And we introduced some pretty heavy cats and metal guys too. But I got introduced to all this shit by accident. You ever heard of William Cooper, Bill Cooper?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Beyond the Pale Horse.
Yeah.
So back in 1990, I walked into a room and this thing was being played on fast speed. He was dubbing a cassette. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? It was all about aliens and Mars, and, hollow moon. And just it was coming at a flurry. And all this stuff started, hitting me like it was faster than you should be able to actually catch it. And it hit me like in, seconds. Like, well, this makes sense to me. So that started my whole, interest in everything beyond what I was being told, similar to what he's saying, but a completely different place. I'm a person that believes in, I definitely space and the idea of infinite space, multiverses, infinite realities folding up on top of each other. It's just, everything is possible, including flat Earth. If you want to go down that road, why not one reality be that? Or
we're going to debunk some of that for you today. It's going to be fun.
Well,
you could.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Try.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up, Craig, because with Dave, I really thought, this is such an interesting theory that he has, and that he's done a lot of work and a lot of research on and takes very serious. And when anybody's all in on something, I try to hear it out, right? And Dave, I just wanted to know, before you get into this, what was the turning point? Like, what was the aha moment for you that put you on this flat Earth path? Could you expound on that?
Yeah. So I did a podcast out of New York City, out of Stand Up New York Labs, called Deep Inside. Excuse me. Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, where we looked into conspiracies. And in the third year, people started sending me flat Earth stuff. And they're like, hey, Dave, watch it. Have you looked into flat Earth? Delete, you're a troll. What are you talking about? I'm not wasting my time. And then finally, I was forced to look, and they sent me Mark Sargent's Clues. And Mark had found, he looked into flat Earth, and he's like, wait a minute, here's some questions. So he put the questions out there in the form of clues. He called it Clues, and he expected some PhD to come back and say, oh, this is how that works, Mark. And nobody came back. Nobody had a suitable answer for any of these. I think it was for 13 or 18 clues. And so then I started looking, and the one thing that got me was, if the Earth is a ball, the size they say it is, there should be some curvature, but there isn't. They say, boats go over the horizon, but when you look over at with our super zoom cameras now, we can see things that should be hundreds of feet below the horizon. I'm right here in Connecticut. I can see the Whitestone Bridge. It should be over 400 feet below the horizon, but and that's, the two towers are 216 feet tall or whatever. So the tops of those should be hundreds of feet below. I can see below the deck. I can see the footings on a clear day of the bridge. So there's no curvature. And I did it myself. I got my camera, I zoomed in, and so that was the beginning right there. So then I just started looking at all of the other stuff. The other thing is, we're programmed into believing flat Earth is something that it's not. If you Google flat Earth, you end up with the Flat Earth Society. You end up with images like this. No flat earther believes this. The Flat Earth Society says flat earthers believe the Earth is rising up at 9.8 meters per second to cause gravity. No flat earther believes that. That's just what globers, no offense, believe flat earthers believe. Okay. So once then I started looking into the heliocentric model, which I thought I knew about. And you look at the heliocentric model, Jamie, do you know how fast the Earth is spinning? Jamie?
I don't.
Yeah, so right, and neither did I. I didn't know any of the answers. At the equator, it's spinning at 1,000 miles per hour. That's faster than the speed of sound. So when you're watching the sunset, you believe that you're falling over backwards faster than the speed of sound, which is making the sun appear to set. While that's going on, we're orbiting at 66,600 miles an hour. We're chasing the sun at 500,000 miles per hour. That entire thing's moving sideways at 1 to 2 million miles per hour. And they tell us, because of the spin of the Earth, that the water bulges 14 miles high at the equator. That's what mainstream science tells us. I'm like, that's the coolest thing ever. It makes perfect sense. Why isn't Africa underwater? It's not 14 miles high. When does a plane triple its cruising altitude just to skim over that hump of water? Never. How come lakes can look like this? How can lakes look like that when water's bulging at the equator, right? None of that makes any sense. And then once you realize, like, okay, what is this place? Well, it's not a spinning ball. I don't know what the hell it is, but it ain't a spinning ball flying through an infinite vacuum. Last thing, and then I'll let you guys go, is the heliocentric model says there was a big bang, whether there was nothing or something, and it exploded. And then all of the rocky bits turned into balls, rocky balls, and all of the gases turned into giant balls with even more gravity, right? And left a vacuum in between them. Go make a gas ball in a vacuum. Let me know how you make out. How does a gas ball exist in a vacuum? Impossible. It's nonsense. It's pseudoscience. They're melting our brains. They're making us believe nonsense so we could believe other nonsense. It's a prison for our minds. All right. Sorry.
No, that was great. And if we stop right there, you would definitely win that argument if we stop right there. I mean, see, to me, it's like a lot of it's pseudoscience. I mean, the science that we hear is pseudoscience because science is constantly changing, isn't it? I mean, every time a theory is thrown out there, they experiment the hell out of it, and it finally comes to some sort of conclusion beyond what we thought before.
That would be science.
It's constant.
That would be science. Well, I mean, but Neil deGrasse Tyson says the science is settled. We no longer need to look. The high priest of scientism.
That's
okay. Can I?
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Can I say something about the equator? Because when I went to the equator,
I was going to ask you about this.
Okay, I had a lot of questions. First of all, they took us to what they called was the real equator, not the gringo equator.
And they showed you the Coriolis, right?
They showed us a bunch of different things that, phenomenon that you are taught when you're a child at school happen at the equator and why they happen. So in asking certain questions about everything from the force of gravity, like the gravity being different, right? When you're, they give you a thing that you try to move. If you're standing on one side, you try to like pull it and it won't move. But if you go to the other side of the equator, there's some wild stuff that they do.
I haven't seen that one. They show you the water draining in opposite directions, which is a trick.
They do that.
It has to do with electromagnetism, I'm gathering?
No. They claim that because you're on different sides of the equator, the Coriolis effect makes the toilet spin, and the drains spin in different directions. By the way, the drains in Australia don't spin any different than the drains here in America. That's a myth. But right. These hucksters at the equator will have a sink, and they put some leaves in it, and they pour the water in. They pour the water a little bit to the left of the drain, and it circles clockwise. And then they do it on the other side, and they pour it a little bit to the right of the drain, and it circles counterclockwise. It's just a huckster trick. None of it's true. I have toilets in my house that spin in opposite directions.
Well, okay, so we did realize that just them bringing us to this other area was proof that they're advertising something that's fake. So that was interesting in itself. Then we went, we went in to see the guinea pigs, and if they come up to you, you have a certain type of energy. I mean, this was a whole ordeal, right? But in going to whatever your normal public school and I didn't go past like 9th and 10th grade was as far as I got, right? It's 9th because I didn't really make it through 10th. But I know they said, okay, these explorers believed in a flat earth. And when I looked up, that was not a case, right? That was not the case. Flat earth, there was maps. There was already this globe theory with Columbus and pre-Columbus. There was a sphere types of, I don't want to say globes, right? Because the globe is not to scale. When they say, okay, this inch represents 1,000 miles, it doesn't add up, right? So same with their maps when they were exploring pre-GPS and technology. So I knew that there was something up, that it was like guesstimating in certain, and then also when you're having these guys take you to the equator and they're not scientists, but they're showing you these phenomenons of nature. Even to put it into words, I can't do it. Like you even said, I never heard of that one. There was like a thing with an egg where it's like solid. Now, could have been glued down. I don't know. He moved it when he went to the other side of the equator, what supposedly is the equator. So there's all sorts of phenomenons that I don't understand, but I don't say that they don't exist.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things you're unwinding there. We keep touching on NASA. We're gonna have to take a look at NASA in a moment. But
yeah, I want to.
Yeah, as far as our history, everything in our history is a lie. Every single thing. If you can't go back before the early 1900s, because everything they tell us is a lie. Tartaria was a worldwide civilization that you probably never heard about in school, but it's not a myth. It's not a theory. It's provable. There's maps. There's buildings, all sorts of stuff. But I interviewed a 102-year-old woman in February of 2020, and she about the world's fairs, and that was basically the hijacking of our world from the old world. And I had such a great memory. I asked her about what middle school she went to. She knew the name of her school. She went to Connecticut, public school, elementary school. She knew the street, teachers' names, kids in the class. And I said, what did they teach you about the earth? And she said, they taught me the earth was flat, but then years later they changed it. So we started looking around. We found a woman from Croatia who said in the 1930s, everyone knew the earth was flat. They taught it all across the country. And then we found newspaper articles on microfilm going through libraries about teachers in the early 1900s in Europe and America that are being persecuted for trying to teach heliocentrism. But it was forced upon us. Then we had wars, depression, destruction of evidence. What's the first thing we did when we went to Iraq? We went right into the museums and we took the evidence. They're hiding the evidence, but there's still plenty. Like if you go to Prague, there's tons of evidence of this previous civilization that was way more advanced here in the 1800s.
Oh, right.
That's what I was about the Babylonians. The Babylonians.
Well, that's what I was going to say about Ecuador as well. They have a different history. Just like when we went to Turkey, they take you have a guide. He says, this is not the shit that we show everybody. They take you to a different place in Turkey. They go, this shit predates Greece. This predates Rome. So I've always been at these places, various different places on Earth where on the globe or whatever you want to call it. What do you call it, Dave?
The flat Earth plane?
Yeah, like what is the plane?
Flat Earth,
it's just a plane?
Flat Earth plane?
It's just the Earth plane.
Okay, so I've been all over the Earth plane.
Do you know what flies over the Earth plane? An airplane.
Well, everyone's got a different story, and everybody knows somebody who knows somebody. So I've always been skeptical of these types, but then when you start to look into it and you hear, especially with the stuff in Turkey, with them having stuff that predates Greece, and you go, well, that's weird. Why does Greece get to say this happened? The Parthenon was then, and then you hear about documents being destroyed. So just sorry to interrupt, but you were saying that this history was altered.
It's totally altered, and one of the biggest proofs that they have that they teach here in America and different places is the story of Aristophanes, right? The Greek mathematician that figured out the world is a sphere by the sticks and shadows experiment with the sun, right? You're familiar with it? So here's Aristophanes. He's here.
I am actually.
What's that?
I'm familiar with it, yes.
Yeah, so here's Aristophanes. He's got his the sun parallel rays coming in parallel, and he's got no shadow, and his buddy's over here, and he's got a shadow, and he could do some perfectly good math, some calculus, and figure out the sphericity of this ball. And there's nothing wrong with that math equation. It's real, it works, and it's real math. The problem is on a flat Earth with a small local sun. Aristophanes is here, his buddy's over here, they know the distance, they could do the same formula and figure out the sphericity of this flat level plane. Well, math is correct. We don't live in a math equation. We live in a real world, and when you assume something like a ball, you can make it look like a ball. But this is what we see. And the other thing is, we're told that that the rays from the sun come in parallel. Why would anyone ever think that, the rays from the sun come in parallel, other than science telling you that, the sun is 93 million miles away. Therefore, the rays come in parallel when we've never, ever seen them come in parallel. If you look at any sun rays, whenever you see them, they come in at angles. They come in, angles. And we see, reflections across flat water that don't work on a ball.
Let's hear it, Craig.
Yeah. Well, okay. I think this stuff is fascinating. I do, and if I didn't check myself, I'd probably like start dipping over that way myself. But first of all, this shirt here is the SR-71. All right.
Oh,
yeah,
my
everybody
favorite.
knows about
Thank
the
you for mentioning
SR-71.
it. Boom.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah. And I've seen the pictures of the Earth, like, supposedly curved this way, flat this way, curved this way. You concave and
Fisheye
everything.
lens.
I've seen it
Go ahead.
all.
Yep.
I grew up in a family where I grew up in Las Vegas, and Nellis Air Force Base is right there. And I knew a navigator for an F4 that actually took me to the Air Force Base. That I went up and learned. I didn't actually get to go in a fucking F4. That would have been amazing. But I learned a lot of things, and I even at a young age, I was asking them about flat Earth. I remember asking them, and they just the look of gasp of laughter, especially for the navigator that has to deal with maps and the calculations for dropping the bombs and everything to do with everything. All that's it's relative. It's all in his everyday. So I mean, I'm not saying that a lot of this stuff's over my fucking pay grade. Like I said, I play guitar.
They're not. You have common sense. They've convinced you to check your common sense for nonsense. Let me comment. As soon as you're done, I'll comment.
One second, Dave. One second. This is why I say it's more interesting to kind of get beyond what you're saying here into how that affects everything beyond that. Because I mean, you could explain it all you want to, but I want to know kind of your this is me personally. Jamie might have a whole nother set of things he wants to learn about, but I want to know what you think sets up this reality and how this sun works, relative to this flat Earth. I want to know that, and I also want to know, because I know you have to have some sort of either spirituality or some sort of belief system that's, because to me it's almost like when flat earthers talk about it, it's almost like if you were watching what was that movie, Clash of the Titans, and the gods are like looking over the board, and like pushing the pieces around.
So
I mean, I want to know a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
I'm very interested.
I thought you were gonna bring, when you were talking about the pilot, I thought you were gonna bring up the eclipse, but because when I talk to pilots, and I've been on planes with John Travolta. I was on a plane one time. John Travolta was the fucking pilot.
Whoa,
I'm like, I was like, Travolta he's got to have some info that we don't have, right? Because he's at a higher pay grade, and I think the higher the pay grade you go, the more secret knowledge you get.
Yeah.
But the eclipse, when we were kids, we would see, you couldn't look at it obviously, but you saw on the ground that what do you call that? The shadow was a circle. So that's not a globe. It's a circle, Dave.
Yeah. So we're jumping from topic to topic. I'd like to focus on one topic at a time. You mentioned the SR-71. Let's get to the eclipse after that.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, no worries. It's just a lot of information, and I'll try not to drone on and on so we all have time to talk. But so first thing, all NASA documents, all FAA documents talk about the Earth as a flat, non-rotating plane. We've seen them documents. They're they're up into the 1950s, late 50s. They talk about the Earth as a flat, non-rotating plane. Everything is based off of a flat, non-rotating plane. So an airplane flying at 500 miles an hour, 550 miles an hour, a regular airplane.
Where are these documents so that our Patreon people?
I will show you. I'll show you where you can find all those documents. Just look up.
And we have proof that they're not just something that exists on the internet. They
absolutely
really
100%. And there's tons of them. There's tons of videos on them.
Yeah,
with links where you can find them.
A lot of people say they have proof on the internet.
You can find them on NASA's website themselves. Okay. So
that would help. Yeah.
Well, I like that, Dave, because the sites that I feel are pro globe are kind of almost like condescending. They'll list out, okay, climb a tree or watch a lunar eclipse or watch a ship sail off the sea. But what you're saying is there are actual NASA documents.
Yeah. So we'll get into that, and I'll show you where to find them. Don't believe anything I say today. I'm pointing to some doors. I'm going to show you where the information is. Go look at it yourself. Verify it yourself. Unlike NASA, every single thing NASA tells us is unverifiable by any civilian. It's just by a bunch of liars, and I'm going to show you that they're liars. But first, an airplane flying at 500 miles an hour would have to nose down. After an hour, they would be 30 miles higher in the sky, right? They'd be 30 miles higher. Their gyroscope keeps them level. They'd have to nose down an average of a mile every 2 minutes, right? When a plane just starts descending into your airport, you wake up like, whoa, we're descending, and you're descending a tiny little bit, right? Your body knows it. You'd have to nose down 30 miles.
Hold on though, but those planes are specifically set to correct themselves at the altitude. They're not going to just like brainlessly wander. Even a pilot who's driving that was flying the Red Baron, that flew the triplane would try to even out on a level.
Yeah,
you'd have to even it out.
That's untrue. That's untrue. If you look at the fighter pilots that are flying like just feet over the desert, the drop is unreal how fast it happens. But the SR-71, I haven't done the calculation how fast the drop is. But let's talk about the SR-71. The SR-71 goes Mach 3.2. Any faster, it starts ripping apart. The most famous pilot that was flying one of these guys, he was in a crash. He got horribly burned, but he speaks a lot, and he's the one that did all the photographs of the SR-71 in the air. He did a talk. I'm not sure when it was, but I made a video on it recently, where he talks about when he's flying over California, where he could see the mountains that he could see. Well, the altitude that he said and the things that he was seeing are impossible on a ball. They'd be 50, 80, 100 miles below the curve, but he was saying he could see them. So he right there proved it's not the case. But that's even worse. We're going to get into NASA.
But why? Why do you think? Because he has to...
He doesn't know. He doesn't know that he's debunking the globe. They just believe the Earth is a ball, and they're not doing the calculations. Like if I said, hey, I can see something I can see the Whitestone Bridge 30 miles away. You'd be like, okay, you would think the Earth is a globe. But then you do the math. You're like, wait a minute, it should be 400 feet below the curve, and it's not. So...
But why do they say then, like when I asked the pilot at 35,000 feet, the curve becomes clear, and then at 50,000 feet, it becomes even more clear?
I'm gonna all right. That's the second question, but let me finish my point here, and then I'll answer that.
Because the Blackbird, I thought can go. I'm just saying because the Blackbird, I thought can go even higher than that.
Oh,
no?
yeah, Blackbird gets around, go anywhere between 80 and 100,000 feet. All right,
so whatever,
right on the edge of space.
I don't care what height it goes. If it goes faster to Mach 3.2, even though it's like a razor blade, it starts ripping apart. You can't paint the Blackbird because it heats up to over 500 degrees and the paint burns off. But this hunk of junk can go 25,000 miles an hour, Mach 23 or whatever it says, Mach 33. This not aerodynamic hunk of garbage can go 10 times faster than this thing. Okay. That is a belief.
But it's going outward. It's going straight up into the atmosphere. It's a lot different than riding against. It doesn't matter.
It's going faster than this thing within minutes of takeoff before it's out of the atmosphere, and it's going way faster. Everything about this is wrong. Everything. When you understand,
it's a different construct. It's a different construct. It's a different kind of engineering. It's a different thing.
We're talking about aerodynamicity, if that's a word. And it makes absolutely
also the propulsion is completely different, right? Because you're dealing with
Have you guys Jamie, have you ever been in a hurricane? You've been in Connecticut. We've had a couple of hurricanes here, right? Pretty devastating.
Yeah.
So that's a hurricane. 150 mile an hour wind knocks houses off. 175 is just devastating. A tornado, which is like 300 miles per hour, it will rip foundations out of the ground. Right? It'll just turn trees into splinters. Right? So think about this: when this thing is taking off, and a tornado is room temperature. This thing is blasting out multiple thousands of degrees at 17,000 miles an hour of thrust. And there's little fences around it, metal fences that should be atomized, but they don't even shake. Okay. When you see them, everything should be destroyed, and it isn't. And when it's taking off, there's a big smoke cloud below it, and the smoke cloud isn't even affected. It should be pulverized. No one's putting their heads together. They're faking every.
I don't know. I've been nearby when it's taken off.
No one's nearby when they take off.
Well, okay. What would you consider nearby? I've probably been within 9 miles, 10 miles.
Yeah, that no one's closer than 10 miles.
You can watch it if you're a part of the family. You can actually sit there, or anybody that works there. You can sit there.
True. That's not true. They show you these. If you look,
what are you talking about?
I'll show you. So the problem is
so a few miles away. You're telling me that there's nobody there at Cape Canaveral. A few miles away. That
they're
all
over
these
10
years
miles
that
away.
People have sat there, watched it.
They're over 10 miles away.
10 miles away is pretty damn close.
It's actually
when you're talking
tiny.
about this.
When I look
if it
across
goes
Long
sideways,
Island Sound,
if it does actually explode outward, then we have a huge problem.
Yeah.
Then
here's the problem.
Houston has a really big problem.
There's two things, and this is really hard for people to accept. One thing to do, they launch balloons. They're literally balloons. They're airships with rocket assisted. This, however, was a SpaceX launch, and that was all CGI. It was projected. We found the projectors on their lawn, and we zoomed in on them, got the serial numbers, and we thought, like, what are they, spotlights? And we found out it's from a holographic projection company, and watch what happens.
What?
Yes, watch what happens. There's a screw up, and the top of the rocket disappears. I'll zoom in, okay? During the launch, that happens. Okay. This is a holograph in the air. You've seen Tupac on stage, so don't say I don't believe they could do this. And the other thing is, how are they getting this side shot for so long? This thing is going up into space. How are they getting a side shot from the ground? Once you analyze what's going on these rockets, it's undeniable, right? But let's go into some stuff that's just a little closer that we can see. You guys believe in the International Space Station, right? Why would they fake gravity on the International Space Station? You know, they're always flipping their microphone around, flipping a hat around. They're always floating something in the air. These guys were floating something on the air, and way down the hallway, this guy goes floating by, and I zoomed in. He was really tiny, and you could see his harness and his wire. You could see the wire in his harness. Why are they faking a guy on a harness? And the NASA fanboys will say, well, it's for safety. They're hanging. They got wires for them for safety. Well, bullshit. That's a NASA apologist. Okay. And then the other thing that
does that look like? Looks like a joystick or a dildo.
Okay, so let's say they're faking it.
Yeah.
What is the benefit of tricking everybody into the globe? I see a couple of people ask this already.
Thank you. This is where I want to go next.
Yeah, see the guy flipping his hat around? He's supposed to pass it to this guy. They're looking at a monitor. That hat's not there. It's augmented reality. And he thought he passed it, and he puts it away, and it's not there. Okay? It's called augmented reality. And here's another example. There's nothing here. She's talking to kids. All of a sudden, bam, there's their little Paxi stuffed animal. Okay. And they're looking either with contact lenses or at a screen behind the camera, and they're manipulating artificial objects in real time. This is technology that is around. It's basic. You can get it yourself. And they're doing this stuff. They do their flips. They get caught in harnesses. They get tangled in their wires, right? All these crazy things happen, right? Their harnesses fail sometimes and they fall, okay?
All right. So these are actors.
These are actors. Look at this harness there. And this guy couldn't even lift his knee up, right? Why do they always pivot over an axis point? Okay. Now, sometimes they're in a 0G plane. This is my favorite right
Her
here.
hair is doing some pretty amazing things right there too.
Yeah. So there's no left-hand turn on a 0G plane. Look at this guy's head. It's transparent. You can see, watch, I'll show you again. Watch the thing on the wall, the piece of equipment on the wall. You can see it through his head. Okay.
So why wouldn't Russian or Chinese or other intelligent come out and say, hey, we're not falling for this? Because what would the benefit be other than
I'm with you. Good question.
Jamie, they have their own space programs. That are absolutely legitimate. You know, everyone's got they're working on it as hard, and India's right behind them. I mean, these people are working incredibly hard.
So, the Indian space program, they just landed on. This is the Indian space program. Did you watch the landing on the moon that crashed a couple months ago? South Park would have rejected it as shitty animation. It's the most garbage anywhere. Here's the thing: the division.
Was it the Indian craft that's I would say allegedly. I'll go with you on this. That allegedly went to the moon.
Yeah. It's literally animation, right? Okay. But what was I going to say? all of the separation of countries is a farce, right? They divided us by countries, they divided us by regions, they divide us by sex, they divide us by races, they divide us by political parties, they divide us by what band you friggin' like, they divide us by everything. They're divide because they know if we get together that our minds will be more powerful than them. We are the many, they are the nothing, but they keep us divided. They're dividing us so badly right now, and now they have us afraid of anybody. If somebody walks within 6 feet of you, you're afraid of them because of a friggin' cartoon. Okay, right? So they've divided us. Now they have us covering our faces. Right? My face is my proof of God. Right? A smile changes the world. Right? Every single relationship starts with a smile, but now they're taking that away from us. So they are depowering us by separating us. Humans need to touch, need to interact. We need to join together. But now they have everyone afraid to talk to anybody. We can't go to pubs and talk to people, right? And if you do, you have fucking fiberglass between you. This is a friggin' takeover of our society. It happens every 100 years, right?
Okay, so let me ask you this.
Yeah,
is there a bigger okay, so if this is a bigger plan, all right, if the benefit was to have, say everyone is a battery of some sort, like say we are here to, and a lot of people are, right, like who's going to make the phones, who's going to make the burgers, who's going to work at the plants, right? So in a way we are. If that's the case, and there's a ruling class, an elite that need everyone to be not in communication so that to not learn, why does it need to be a ball? Why couldn't it be just a plane?
I'll explain. I'll explain.
If I put you in easier to control people if they all thought it was a flat Earth, then I think that they would be more liable to, the gods and monsters. It would seem it would be easier. It would be a much more palatable thing to people. I just think that if everyone was sitting there realizing, and I'm not realizing, but I mean, if everyone was sitting there starting to come to the realization that we're being observed, and the only flat thing in the entire, okay, can I take this? Can I ask you a couple questions? Because
I'm on the space station now. I just want you to know that I'm listening from the space.
Yes,
station.
And you know what? You might glitch out. I mean, but in any video, there's also glitches. You can have glitches on your own videos that you get at home. It's not impossible to have a glitch, especially when you're having something transmitted from a satellite. So that's another thing. This is what I want to know.
Yeah, do I got to give up satellite radio? Like what?
One question at a time. Let me know when you wanted me to answer a question. You guys are throwing things out there. Let me know when you're ready.
I need a moment.
Let's go back.
I need a moment.
So let's go back to the ruling class.
Yeah, let's go to how big this conspiracy goes. Why exactly, or how exactly you're getting hundreds of thousands of people in science working in concert with everybody else that has, I mean, because these satellites go up. Where do they go? So you're saying that no satellite's ever been launched, and everything that's satellite radio right now, like these things that are, I mean, because I almost imagine a world.
You're imagining.
If those satellites go up, I got to, is it like asteroids? Is it like
you're imagining.
They go one end, do they come back on the other? Like what exactly happens?
You're imagining. Let me answer the question. First, the largest owner of helium companies in the world is NASA. The largest consumer of helium is NASA. And they have the massive Satelloon programs where they launch these up to 8,000-pound satellites. There's tens of thousands of these things up there hanging from balloons, right? But you don't hear about that because they don't want you to know about it, right?
So they sit there stationary. So when we see a satellite actually go by at a high rate of speed, at a very, very high rate of speed, you're talking about thousands of miles an hour. You're telling me they're caught in a current and just going. And where can they control them and fly them around?
A lot of questions. Let me answer. All right. So one is the things that the heights that they tell us satellites are at are impossible for the human eye to see. Here's an example. A 747, you ever stand next to a 747? Pretty friggin' big. It's like the size of a friggin' football field, right? It's gigantic, right? Maybe not a football field, but whatever. So you move a 747 to cruising altitude, it's now the size of a small pencil eraser held at arm's length, and it's pretty dim, right? Agreed? When you see a 747 flying at cruising altitude, it's a friggin' ant in the sky. If you doubled the height, you can prove that its angular size is too small for your eye to see, because your eye has an angular resolution limit. That's double the height. Well, the International Space Station is 50 times higher than that, and satellites are even higher than that. So you believe you can see a Volkswagen Bug, right, 100 times higher than a friggin' 747? No, you can't. You're seeing lights in the sky. You know what they are? They're UFOs. You know why they're UFOs? Because they're unidentified. You don't know what they are. But we can prove.
Now you're going to my territory.
We can prove that they're not the satellites that they're telling you. We can prove it. That's scientifically provable, right?
Okay, because I was going to ask the 747 and then the jumbo jet. If at 50,000 it looks, I mean, minuscule, whereas at 30,000 or even coming down to land here at Bradley, the 747, if it is the 747, is very visible and not, ant size.
So at 35,000 feet cruising altitude, that's 1/50th, 1/50th the height of the space station. And satellites are not the size of a 747. They're this big. Okay. And
all right, I got to give Dave that. I think I got to give Dave this.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's a disagreement with that, but I think that you can also, and I've done it, you can track satellites on your phone.
So
from time to time, they actually go by, and you're lucky enough to see it. And I believe that the only reason we get to see a satellite from that distance is because somewhere over that curvature, which I'll still call it, there's a reflection. So the reflection light will hit something once in a great while. It's not like it doesn't happen often.
Let me answer that for you. Once in a while, I used to watch satellites all the time. So can you track a planet? Of course, right? Can you track Halley's Comet? Of course, right?
So those are definitely real, right?
No,
planets and Halley's Comet.
They're not. They're not.
Okay, let's unpack.
They're lying. Here's the only thing that you can accurately say about any of the things that we see in the sky is they're lights. We don't know what they are, right?
Okay.
But we can scientifically prove that the things that we're seeing that we think are the space station and that we think are satellites are impossible to see. Our eye could not resolve them. And also, if it's reflecting light, if it's reflecting light, it can't reflect it to everybody because a mirror can only reflect in one direction.
It's just reflecting to me where I'm.
So why does the sun, when the sun goes to the other side of the earth, quote unquote, other side of the earth, and we see the satellites at night, or we see these on UFOs at night?
Yeah.
Why is it that we see it like that? Is that the reflection of the sun off them, or is that another illumination of sort? Is it the moon?
So a lot of questions there. Those things. Okay,
so what's this thing behind you?
Well, I'm showing you. This is a kind of a model of what the flat Earth is. The Earth is not a disk floating in space. It is more like a pond, like a puddle, right? So a pond. Think about what a pond is. A pond is where water accumulates in a low spot in the land, and the edge of the pond is where the water is higher. So here's the Earth pond. We have all of our continents, which are surrounded by water, but all of the water is surrounded by the highest land on Earth. The highest land on Earth is Antarctica. It is the shoreline of our world pond, right? Antarctica is bigger than all of the oceans and all of the continents combined. We are living in the Antarctic basin. We're not moving. That's scientifically provable. Think about this. All of those crazy motions that we have, we're spinning and twirling and whirling in all these different directions. You guys familiar with the Georgia Guidestones?
Oh yeah,
yes.
Totally.
Okay, so forget the New World Order marching orders on them, but there's a hole in one of them, a thin little straw hole, and if you look through it at nighttime, you see the North Star. Right? This thing's been up for over 40 years. We've traveled trillions of miles in 4 different directions, and when you do a time lapse, you can see that all the stars are circling around that and it's never moved. That is impossible. That's impossible, right? We've traveled trillions of miles in 4 different directions and the North Star has never moved from that hole. That proves that what we see above us is spinning around an access point and we're not moving. You go out tonight, look at the stars, mark where they are in the sky at whatever time, go out a year from now, same night, same time, and the stars will be in the exact same position.
Okay, I've heard you say this on another show.
But that changes over the course of thousands of years.
It does not.
Not like,
it does not.
I've heard you say this on another show. So
yeah.
And leading up to this, so I went out with the telescope with my nephew, and we looked at the Orion's belt, and we did see other things moving.
Yeah, there's other things moving. I don't know. What are they? Man-made technology, or are they other luminaries up there? There's all sorts of stuff going on up there. Astrology is the real science.
Can we bring this to I want to know what you think they are.
Yeah, that's big speculation.
I'm curious. Jamie, are you cool with that? I'm curious.
So I'll give you my opinion, but that's just my opinion. I'm just who am I? I don't know. Anything over the highest we can get or anything beyond the shoreline of Antarctica is off limits. So we don't know what's out there.
And why is that off limits? Why was everyone kept out of Antarctica?
Yeah. So in the 1940s and 50s, they started exploring Antarctica. Admiral Byrd flew out there and he said, hey, beyond the poles, we're on a ball. What's beyond the pole? Right. And there's land bigger than the United States filled with resources that no human has ever stepped foot on. And then immediately after that, while all the countries were killing each other, they all signed an agreement saying nobody can explore Antarctica, no person, no corporation, nobody, because we must preserve it. We can't even fly an airplane over it because we don't want to disturb the penguins. But go ahead, cut down the rainforest and go kill everybody in these other countries. That's fine. But don't fly over Antarctica because we'll disturb the penguins. This is insanity for people to believe this, right? The reason that we don't go over Antarctica is because if we did, we would find out that the Earth is not what they tell us. And then back to your question, why does it matter? Jamie, if I put you in a fence that's 500 miles around, how would you feel about that? You find that fence, you'd be like, I'm going to the other side of that fence. If I made it 5,000 miles or 50,000 miles, you don't give a shit. You want to know, you're a human. You want to know what's on the other side of that fence, right? So they put our minds in a prison. That's a ball. There's nothing left to discover, Truman. We've discovered everything from the Truman Show, okay? Where our minds are in a prison. The analogy I use is Neo in the Matrix. At the beginning, his mind is in the Matrix. His soul knows the truth of this world. He's trying to figure it out. He's depressed. He can't figure it out. By the end of the movie, he's unplugged himself from the Matrix. He's found out who he is, where he is, what he is, and he's taken back the power of his mind. They don't want us to know that our minds create our reality. Okay. They don't want us to know that we can bring into existence anything that we want. We are very strong, powerful people here at the center of creation, and we're not flying through an infinite universe in a godless vacuum. That's insanity to believe it.
So the Antarctica show that Metallica did, that's like a psyop, right? That's like a
and Metallica might not know. They went to Antarctica thinking it's a continent on the bottom of a ball, right? But they might not know. They might know. It was a great concert, and they had them under a dome. Did you notice that? They had them under a dome, right? They rubbed this shit on our faces. They could bring Metallica here.
So
right?
So let me ask you,
they could have been here.
I've been to some super rich people's houses, or I've been to parties where the super, super rich were there, and they definitely will show you stuff that's illegal, that you didn't think a person could own, or that you didn't think could even be maybe brought into America, whatever. You don't know it's real, but there's value. They think there's value in showing you something like that, right? So is there some sort of social currency for the elite to play around with when they go, hey, I got the keys to Antarctica and I can show you what's there or whatever? Right.
Maybe, I don't know. This is Antarctica. We should be able to fly from Santiago to Australia, or, even go around Antarctica because you don't want to disturb the penguins. But that's not how flight routes go. You've seen this, right? Have you seen the actual flight routes? I've seen how flight routes.
I was going to ask you all about that because flight routes actually wouldn't really work the way they work on a flat.
Well, actually, they work perfectly. Instead of cutting across the bottom here, we go all the way up and all the way across and all the way down. And if you want to go to Western Australia, we go all the way up, we go all the way over to Europe and Dubai, and then we go down. But if you look at that on a flat Earth map, it goes up, across Europe, Dubai, and straight line. Okay. And now there's only one airplane and only a couple of pilots that can fly that airplane. That airplane has 7 layers of heat-resistant paint on it. So we don't know how fast it's flying. And if you believe the sound barrier is an actual barrier, you're insane, right? These planes could be flying 2,000 miles per hour. So saying, hey, we can get from Australia to Santiago in 11 hours or 14 hours, that's because you don't understand anything.
You're saying that the planes that we fly in, you're saying commercial airlines may possibly go over 2,000 miles an hour?
I'm saying that they wouldn't have to. The plane that makes that trip, there's actually, it varies sometimes between there's like a 5 hour, they're like 5 hours late sometimes. And that's because they're hitting these airways. There's circular winds above. I'll show you that in a second. And they're catching these tailwinds.
I've seen this before. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So again, we've actually did a live stream where Max Egan, he was flying from Santiago to Australia, and we did a live stream, and we tracked him. We didn't turn the live stream off. We had the live stream the entire flight, and we tracked him. And where they said he was and what his compass said he was made no sense on a globe, but it made perfect sense on a flat Earth. Okay.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because when we went from, I think it was Perth, to LA, when we were looking at, like, during, deep into the night or whatever, when we were looking at the flight, we went over and Alaska and Seattle. Like we
perfect.
Okay.
Look, check this out. So Perth is over here. So
yes.
So you went over Alaska, but why didn't you just go here? Right. So here's a shot from Taiwan to LA. Alaska's up here, right?
Yeah, I think we might have stopped in Malaysia. Is that near Taiwan?
So let me show you. Watch. So there were here's Hawaii. Right here, there was a medical emergency. Someone had a heart attack or a baby or something, and they had to land. So if you're a pilot, you'd probably land in Hawaii or continue over here. Maybe you go back. I doubt it. But instead, they went up to Alaska. Why the hell did they go to Alaska? Here's why. Because this is where they were going. They were coming, boom, emergency, Alaska. Hawaii is all the way out here.
That doesn't work with a sphere?
No, this is what the sphere looks like. This is the sphere. So
but show the sphere from the other direction there.
Well, this I don't have it handy, but this is, flying from Perth. You think it would be the straightest route would be here, but when you look at it, you come from over here, bam,
okay, yep,
boom, Alaska, LA. It's a straight line.
Yeah, that's
Airplanes
wild. That is wild,
Craig.
Craig, that's because
I think there's some rotation to the Earth involved in there somewhere as well.
All right, so thank you for bringing that up. But first, there's a book called 16 Emergency Landings That Prove Flat Earth. Every single one of them makes zero sense on a ball, and they only make sense on a flat Earth. And emergency landings screw them up. NASA, the liars at NASA, are in charge of all GPS, in charge of all radar, and in charge of all flight routes. Okay, so they're hiding what's going on. Some pilots know. We know lots of pilots that know. The Qantas pilots, they all know, but they don't talk about it publicly. We've talked to pilots, and they've been fired the next day for talking to us, saying that the Earth is flat. So the spin of the Earth, so that's my favorite. And try to wrap your mind around this, right? So at the equator, the Earth is spinning right here. That's 24,000 miles around. It spins around once a day. So you're going 1,000 miles an hour. So if you're sitting here on the runway, not moving, you're moving 1,000 miles an hour according to a point in space, a stationary point in space, right? Forget all the other motions that the Earth is doing. The Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. Now, if you were up at the North Pole, let's say you're 1 mile from the North Pole, well, you're not going 24,000 miles. You're making a small circle. That circle is 3.14 miles, if you remember your elementary math, right? Because you're only a mile from the axis of rotation. So
I actually heard that, yeah.
Yeah. So 3.1, that's less than a friggin' quarter of a mile an hour. So you're essentially not moving, right? So you take off from Alaska or from just off the North Pole, you fly to Ecuador, and you're trying to land on a runway that's a north-south runway that's going sideways at 1,000 miles an hour. Okay. How do you catch up to that runway? Or if you left Ecuador and you're moving 1,000 miles an hour, how do you land in Alaska where it's not moving 1,000 miles an hour?
I think we're all moving within the confines of what,
How do you gain
time,
that 1,000 miles? That's just, you're just saying words. How do you gain that 1,000 miles an hour to land on that runway that's moving sideways?
I've heard a lot of words, by the way. I've heard a lot of words.
No, listen, no problem. I
can I ask you something about? Can I ask you something about the flight plan? I don't know if you can bring that image up again, but I was on a flight from Amsterdam to South Africa, and we went up and over. Okay, yeah. So where would South Africa be in relation to? Okay, so
South Africa's here.
Okay, so we went up and over.
Right here.
But there was.
So where'd you go from? From LA?
Well, no, I went from Amsterdam, but the weird thing is we went over Dubai.
Yeah. So Amsterdam, where's Amsterdam? Over here near Taiwan? I don't know where Amsterdam is.
No, Amsterdam's over in Europe. Amsterdam's Holland.
So here.
Yes.
Okay. So literally, boom. You just go straight over. Now, that's not very different on a globe either. That's not very different.
Okay.
Northern routes aren't very different on a globe. It's the southern routes, right? Because Australia.
Okay, so when we went to Chile, we went to Rio, right? That's at the is that further down in Brazil?
Yeah.
You would go. We went straight. Okay.
From where?
From New York.
From New York. Bam. Right down to Brazil. That's no different. These lines of longitude are pretty similar on a flat Earth and a globe Earth. A globe Earth when you're going from north to south. Okay.
But in the center there, to the right of Alaska, is what? That's the North Pole.
No one's allowed to go there. Remember when we were kids, this was all ice. Now it's they're showing it as water. North Pole is a bigger secret than Antarctica, in my opinion. There's stuff going on there. No one's allowed to go to the North Pole. No one's allowed to fly over the North Pole, and they don't even tell you that.
You mentioned Admiral Byrd. Admiral Byrd. One of the things that Admiral Byrd said was it basically was an entrance to a hollow Earth, and there was UFOs flying in and out of it. That was like one of the most craziest things to hear. In what years was he doing that? Was that I'm thinking, was it like the 20s? Was he doing it in the 20s?
And what about Buzz Aldrin?
40s.
Didn't
he
say something about it too?
What,
Buzz Aldrin? You got to get. Yeah, Buzz Aldrin. They threw him into a tank for how many days? It said that he had to get rid of the alcoholic shakes. Like, how do you get? But those are all things that are all over the map. Again, the map we're talking about.
Are you talking about?
I want to know more
Buzz
about
Aldrin,
what
the actor
you think.
the Buzz Aldrin, the actor that has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. That Buzz Aldrin.
Well, yeah, but so does Donald Trump, right? I mean,
he is an actor.
Very much.
So Brian says that we're ignoring relative acceleration. Velocity.
That's what I was.
Yeah. I mean, we're relative acceleration. What do you mean by that? So you think that as you're flying south, you're speeding up with the spin of the Earth.
That if you are in a car and a fly is in that car and you travel 60 miles an hour, the fly is also traveling 60 miles an hour with you because it is in your enclosed space in the atmosphere that you are moving, right?
So are you saying that the Earth is an enclosed space?
I'm saying that the magnetic field and the atmosphere do separate us from the outside of space. Yes, I am. I'm saying that there is an enclosure around us of atmosphere and magnetic field that keeps shit together. That is
you can argue with that because you believe that, but you have no receipts for that. You have no receipts for that. That's just a belief.
Well,
right?
Magnets.
Well, I mean, a lot of what you said are beliefs. They're not necessarily because I mean, I've watched a lot. I've watched your videos. I've watched a lot of other scientific people that would probably be really, really good at sitting down and having conversations with you about this. Other than these metal dudes, that obviously,
but they won't. Hey, I want to wrap
but
back
they will.
to another thing that you guys said. That pilots said that when they go up really high, they can see the curve of the Earth, and the higher you are, the farther you can see on a flat plane. All right. And the weather conditions, due to perspective, the sky meets the horizon and it creates a vanishing point, and that's the limit of your eyesight. Well, I can see X distance that way. I can see the same X distance that way. I can see the same distance in all directions. So if I'm standing right here, I can see in all these directions, right? So if I turn it this way, this guy, he can see this is where his horizon is at all of these things. Then you draw a line over it, and a glober will say, that's the curve of the Earth. No, it's not. That's the distance you see in a circle. You see in a circle, and your programming tells you it's a sphere. This is just how we see. We see in a circle. We see in a circle.
But why is a shadow a different length than at a certain time, right? Because if that's why that's a glober's defense, right? Is that
no? I already showed you that with Aristophanes. The sun on the flat Earth, the sun is small. It circles around the flat Earth. over us. And so, this guy, I'm in New York with the sun's over me and there's no shadow or whatever. I was in Miami or whatever. And then you go over to Baja and there's a shadow at the same time. The sun is just moving over. Let me share my app.
So when they calculate the Earth's curvature, I know you mentioned that earlier, but I wanted to just ask, when they calculate the curvature that way,
yeah,
you're saying that because of whatever, say it's a meter between each point that they're calculating, you're saying that works on the flat Earth model
perfectly. So here's the sun is the hour hand on the sky clock. And again, the sky is a perfect clock, which proves gravity is nonsense. And that we live in this system where the wheels in the sky keep on turning. Right. So right now, what's that?
I said, okay, Steve Perry, go.
I'll speed it up. The sun will catch up to the moon because it'll lap the moon every 28 days. There used to be 13 moons of 28 days, but they hijacked our calendar, screwed us up, and they said there's 12 months now. And the sun will lap the moon every 28 days. And then if I turn on the stars lap the sun once a year. So right now, the sun is in this constellation. Next month, this one will catch up to it. The sun will be in that one for a month, right? So, and then the following one will catch up, and a year later, we'll be back to where we are right now. But
is this why they discredit astrology and mainstream
astrology is billionaires have astrologers, right? Millionaires have analysts, right?
Yeah.
So right now there's 3 circles on here. The inner one is the Tropic of Cancer, the outer one is the Tropic of Capricorn, and the middle one is the equator. Right now you can see that the sun is a little bit inside of the equator. Well, I'll jump the sun to midsummer, and you see now it's over the Tropic of Cancer. Well, I'm in Connecticut. You're in Connecticut. During the summer, the sun is higher in the sky because it's closer to us. It's closer to us. So it's higher in the sky and it's warmer. And then 6 months later, oops, didn't mean to do that. Hold on. 6 months later, the sun goes out to the Tropic of Capricorn. And Australia is having their summer. It's high in the sky for them, but because it's far away from us, it's lower in the sky, and we're having our summer. Seasons prove the Earth is flat, okay? Because, if you had an airplane flying directly over your head and then another airplane, same height, paralleling it, that was 50 miles to your south, that one would be lower in the sky. It would be farther away. That's your winter sun. The one over your head is your summer sun. That's how seasons work. Right? The sun goes in and out. And so if I turn on the zodiac, right now, the sun is in the Tropic of Capricorn. If I jump the sun back to the summer, it's now in Cancer. That's why it's called the Tropic of Cancer. It's so simple. It's so simple. And then time zones work this way. Time zones spin with the sun. Right? So right now it's 7 a.m. in Eastern Australia. It's 11 p.m. in Central Africa.
And all this is available on your app, Dave?
Yeah, this is my app. And the app does a ton of other things. And here's the thing. I have a challenge for people that think flat Earth is stupid, because I was one of them. Every day there's a new video here that just gives you a little tidbit. Short ones during the week, longer ones on the weekend. And I say, watch the video every day for 2 weeks. And if you think the Earth is still a globe, send me one proof and I'll give you a Bitcoin. But before you do, you have to hit the question mark, and up come every single question you're going to ask me. Hey, what about Coriolis? What about eclipses? Right? If I hit what about eclipses, up comes a playlist that Google is hiding from you. They will not show you these videos, right? And these videos,
well, now why are they blocking these videos? Because I tried this.
Okay.
They don't want you to see this stuff, because if everyone, here's the thing. I just went to the Flat Earth Conference in South Carolina. And by the way, also tons of other information, all the debunking videos, ways that you can prove all the stuff yourself.
So they're banning people, and they're shadow banning people because they feel this is dangerous, because if people become,
well, okay. I'll tell you why. First,
I think we need to shift this, Dave and Jamie. I think we need to shift this to your reasoning as to why this is the way, this is the means of control, and how many people are behind this.
First question is, would you go to space in this homeless tweaker shelter? Would you go to space in this paper mache, tinfoil, curtain rods, and duct tape homeless tweaker shelter? The answer is, of course, you wouldn't. Okay. Right. There's so many.
Well, I wouldn't personally. But
by the way, there was an asteroid that came by. This is the asteroid that NASA said came by the Earth.
You've done a lot.
Do you believe that?
You've done a lot of talking, man.
All right,
you've done a lot of talking.
Sorry.
You're not done, because we're gonna ask you more questions where you can talk even more. Because I'm enjoying hearing your point of view. I found your show interesting.
Thank you.
I found a lot of what you said to be also very reactionary in the moment, and they intersect. Things intersect on your page or on your show with other things that are going on, and then we start to draw these conclusions, and they're all based on one another, and it becomes more of a tangled web. Like I call it a sea of disinformation, like white noise. There's so many things to unwrap in what you're saying.
Well, also when a pro NBA player or a rock star like Steph Carpenter would choose to believe Dave over years and years, hundreds of years of whatever, or you're right. Okay, so 100 years or less of whatever their parents and their great grandparents were taught. It scares people. Like, I mean, that episode came out, publicists were contacting me, other people were contacting me. I mean, it was like they were being discredited. People jumped on them. People started threatening them. I mean, you really strike a nerve here with this theory, Dave. And I think that in itself is very interesting, because why do people get so crazy about this and go right to discrediting?
Because
that's a modern issue.
Yeah, this is the thing that will destroy the elite's control. I just said I went to the Flat Earth Conference in South Carolina last week, and there was hundreds of us. Everyone's awake and aware to what's going on in the world. They see through the bullshit. They've all disconnected from the matrix, and they've stopped giving their fear energy to the elite. So once you understand that there's no such thing as asteroids killing us, there's no such thing as nuclear bombs killing us, there's no such thing as terrorists killing us, that all the nations they're lying about everything. Okay. Once you realize all of that, you no longer live in fear, right? They train us before we can talk to believe in the globe. Then they throw in dinosaurs and asteroids and scare the crap out of kids. Like an asteroid could take them out, and that's the foundation of what we were grown up on. So there you go.
I just feel like
there's something there. Fear is a currency. There definitely is something there. Fear is a currency, and it's driving the world right now. No, I agree with that part, but I would like to know why then are they so afraid of this, where if you can be so easily disproved, then what would it take? What would it take? Here we go. Jake has a great question in the chat. What would it take to make you believe that it was a globe, Dave?
Show me curvature, show me spinning. Every single argument that has ever been done to prove curvature or axial rotation has failed. Everyone through history, and they don't tell us that in school. They don't bring up any of that stuff. So, look up these experiments, Airy's failure, Michelson and Morley, the Sagnac experiment. All of these experiments by renowned scientists failed and proved the opposite, but they don't teach us that in school. So
they would argue differently, of course. And these are people that have spent their lives, I mean, I don't know. You probably went to some sort of college. You probably took physics. You had to have taken some
4 years of astronomy.
Okay, 4 years of astronomy, and then you've had your foundations completely crushed by all this stuff, and you changed. Completely. You pivoted, which is a good thing. When you pivot, I mean, to have the ability to pivot and learn something new and expound on it is a great thing, I think. But the problem I'm finding, and I keep wanting to get back to this, is like how everything intersects. You've been telling us they don't want to. They're trying to control us. That's a vague thing that, yes, it's true. It's always been true. But isn't it the internet ultimately, and that all this bullshit that comes at us from all sides that is doing the job of controlling? Because you can really put out anything on the internet, and it can feed your own narrative. It can be your own echo chamber to back up your own points of view. And that's what I'm finding. I found that a lot in flat earth, and I find that a lot in other science too, and other kind of pseudoscience. And I find that a lot with the politics, and I find that a lot in any kind of conspiratorial thing. and they're intersecting right now. Everything. What is the game? What is the end game? I mean, in your mind, this is important to me to learn, because you got to have some sort of point of view here that's driving you, that you think makes everybody want to fight for this so fucking hard to make sure that nobody understands that we live on a globe. Like, the ultimate control is that. I think there's a list of a few other things that could be, just as important, if not more important, to maintain control.
Also, can't you not fear death, and live your life to however you need to live it without it being a globe or being flat?
Death. They want us to fear death. But when you understand that we live at the center of creation, and that, their whole story of who we are, what we are, is a lie. They've separated us. We are not the pinnacle of civilization. We are literally at the bottom of the dark ages compared to what was here before us. Just look at the buildings that were built.
I believe that. I believe that. I don't know that has anything to do with the flat Earth, but there are civilizations that sit underneath other civilizations, underneath millions of years or at least hundreds of thousands, if not thousands of years of sediment. There are civilizations that were more advanced, and they were probably a lot more ecologically sound than this one, right?
But also, couldn't there have been weapons that did cause a mass extinction event?
Absolutely.
And then the few survivors did.
Got any receipts?
Yeah, they hide the evidence, and then they get to control the rest of us and their whatever technology they're hiding.
So you guys haven't looked into nuclear bombs, have you? So
yes, we went a little bit down that rabbit hole afterwards, and we, what, we're gonna have to do a part 2, and we'll have to do solo episodes with both you guys. I really appreciate the time. I hate to cut this short because there's so many questions in the chat too. If you could just, Garrett Keeping had a good one in here. Let me scroll back here. Was it you, Garrett?
Well, my favorite question was the sarcastic one. Magnets, how do they work?
Oh yeah, no, here is the sun. Is the sun flat or a hologram?
It's not a hologram. It's a projection. It's not a physical. The sun that we see versus the real sun. And there's been some.
So this projection's been going on. Wait, before we go, we can't go without knowing.
But is this to heat the Earth, or is this to be some sort of vitamin battery or whatever, some sort of power source for the Earth that's being manipulated by the ruling class, or what is
the system is a design system. We have free energy everywhere. The moon is the anode, the sun is the cathode. It's sending electricity here to Earth, and that's how solar panels work. Scientists don't even know how solar panels work because they don't know that the sun is sending electricity. They think it's sending particles called photons, and that's not the case. Salt water carries the current. The land is the salt bridge, and that makes the battery. You lift up off the Earth, there's voltage. There's 100 volts at 1 meter, 200 volts at 2 meter, and it goes up from there. There's free energy. Tesla proved it, pulled free energy out of the air. JP Morgan said, no, we can't meter that. We can't control the world.
You're not answering my question, though.
What's your question?
I want to know who you think is controlling that for all these thousands, if not millions of years.
Controlling what?
What is it? Is it God? Is it gods? Is it Satan? What is controlling the board? Because I just keep going back to this. I'm seeing Clash of the Titans. You've seen Clash of the Titans, right, Jamie?
Yeah, and I think anytime I get new evidence and someone brings me something that I feel is like of value in my life, I think about what I would do, right? So if somebody was endangering your family, or if someone was endangering something that you need that to survive, you would do everything in your power to hide it from anybody who you viewed as a potential threat, right? So if you look at that sort of thinking, and if you look at when everybody was trying to kill each other, the world wars back, what does that go back? 60 years, 70 years. Well, if the Earth and the resources within the Earth needed to be depopulated, or needed to be protected by depopulating the Earth, then you would have all these wars, right? Which we continue to have. And who benefits from that? There's obviously a ruling class, whether it's the military industrial complex or billionaires or trillionaires, people above the billionaires.
Before that, it was families. It was always families. It was always bloodlines. And that's just the way it's been, and the resources were always the means that they can control people. That much has always been true. And I think that, from the first apes that picked up the club, that figured out that the club is the way to handle their business. You know, this is the way it's been.
Right.
I'm just curious as to, and it's we got to come back to it, Jamie, because I want to know what you think is behind the curtain. You know, because to me, it's like a curtain. You're saying that it pull back the curtain and it's just a projection. And all of those telescopes that see light years into the future are just seeing things that are being created. The most elaborate schemes are being created just to control this flat orb. Or orbs, wrong word.
Let me address that.
Plane.
Jamie, we got to go for a few more minutes. You okay?
Yeah.
All right. So a telescope is no different than a microscope. It's just bigger. So when you take a microscope and zoom into the cells of a leaf, it looks like you're zooming through space, but you can tell people that you're zooming through space and they believe it. But then when you pull back and go, no, it's just a leaf and I'm looking into the cells in a leaf. It's the same thing. So I'm going to prove to you right now.
Like, that's not really what it looks like.
I'm going to prove.
Okay,
to
no.
you.
So like when you measure, so when you look at like a snowflake in a microscope, and then you try to measure, say, the coastline, there's these weird anomalies, right? These weird measurements. I forget the term for it, but
it repeats. Yeah, but it repeats.
So
that's true.
So I'm going to prove to you right now that we can't see stars if they were the size that they tell us. All right. So just, you got to bear with me. It's going to take 2 minutes. All right. You ready? So the sun is a giant yoga ball and the earth is a marble, right? That's what they tell us, right? As far as sizes go. So if the sun was a mile over our head, it would fill the entire sky like that. All right. And then I move the sun. They say it's 93 million miles away. I move it away and it gets small really quick. Why does it get small? Perspective, distance, right? Everybody with me? Jamie?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. So 93 million miles away, it goes from the entire horizon to horizon, which is just bigger. It's the size of the sky to the size of a freaking coin held at arm's length. If I doubled the distance, you scientifically could prove that you couldn't see it, but let's make it 8 times farther just to make sure. 8 times farther, that nickel that went from the entire sky to the size of a coin is now 8 times farther. I'm going to call that distance I can't see the sun because it's too far distance, right? The closest star is 40,000 times farther than the I can't see the sun because it's too far distance. And every other star is magnitudes farther from it. Scientifically, if you do the math, you don't even need to do the math because it's completely obvious. We couldn't see any of those stars. Polaris, they say, is 433 light years away, but it's 46 times bigger than the sun. So the sun at a light hour away, let's move Polaris would be the same size, couldn't see it at 2 light hours away, but they're telling us it's 433 light years away. This is pseudoscience brain gravy, okay?
Yeah, but I don't see it like that. I don't see it like that. I think that it just really says the universe is much, much older.
I think we do need to do. I do think we need to do the math. Like maybe when we do the next episode, I can do some better research, talk to someone who can maybe, I don't know, attempt some of these calculations and just see. I know you've done some of these, Dave, and that way
angular size is provable. It's simple math. The angular size is too small to see. Your eye can't see anything smaller than 0.02 degrees. Move the sun 8 times farther away, it's smaller than 0.02 degrees. But they'll say, well, light just travels forever, you know, and the stars that you're seeing were there a billion years ago, but they're not there anymore. Nonsense. The inverse.
But when you're looking through the lens, but depending on the lens of the telescope, if the star is, this is why I want to do the math, because if the star is a certain amount of miles away from, Earth.
Do you know how they figured out how far the sun is? Do you know how they figured that out?
How?
They said one day Venus, which is about the same size as Earth, transited the sun, and somebody in New York and somebody in California watched it, and one of them started earlier and ended earlier than the other one. Then they did some perfectly fine math like Aristophanes did, and they determined the distance of the sun at 93 million miles. Here's the problem. They assumed Venus, which is just a light in the sky, is the size of Earth. I say Venus is the size of a basketball, and you can't prove me wrong. Okay, I don't know what size Venus is.
When was this?
This is when this is a few decades ago or whenever. It wasn't even that long ago because they keep changing the distance of the sun. And during the August solar eclipse, the total solar eclipse, some amateur astronomers who are not in on any of this did some calculations and they're like, wait a minute, the sun has to be farther than 93 million miles. There was a whole bunch of stuff on the internet about it and it all disappeared because if the sun is farther, that means the moon is farther. That means our orbit's bigger. That means every planet is a different size. Every planet is a different distance, and they literally made it disappear from the internet. Okay,
Are there
before we go
planets? Are there other planets? I got to ask: are there other planets? Because with this model,
the only
planets.
See,
there you go. There's not other planets. Nothing is spherical out there. Is the sun even spherical?
Here
we're gonna have
Mars.
We're gonna have to do.
This
we're gonna have to do part two. Listen, we're gonna have to do part two. Dave, have you been offered to be bought out? Have you been threatened? Have you been approached by?
My biggest fear, I say this all the time, is that two guys with a cup of coffee show up at the door and say, hey, we'll give you your tropical house on the islands with your kite surf right out of your yard. I don't know how I'm going to say no to that. So,
so you're selling us, you're not a psyop.
I'm saying don't believe anything I say. Go check it out yourself. I mean, this is Jupiter, right? Our optics have outgrown their lives, right? This is the star Arcturus. Does that look like a burning ball of hydrogen? Okay. This thing is right here within the Earth system. This is the star Capella. Okay. Right. NASA doesn't show us this. What NASA shows us is nonsense. They show us.
Did you say that's in our system?
Yeah, that's you can zoom in on this yourself with a telescope or a super zoom camera, right? These are what stars really look like when you look at them. They're not burning balls of hydrogen like they're telling us, right?
But those are perceptions of stars when you're looking at them through a telescope from millions and millions of miles away.
Or they're right here within the Earth system.
That's really true.
How come when we look in a telescope?
How do you know that that's in our system for sure?
Well,
how do we know?
How come when you look through a super zoom camera, all of the stars are in focus? That means they're all the same distance.
Wait, this has been so fascinating, guys. Thank you so much, Dave. I appreciate the time. Craig, we will let you talk more next time. We'll do a solo episode with you. Where can they find you, Craig? Plug the band, plug the video.
Yeah, man, I'm living. Our fucking new song just got dropped today, and it's called "There Goes the Sun." Isn't that ironic?
Nice. Look at that. Look at that.
Yeah, Dress the Dead. Yeah, Dress the Dead. You can find us everywhere. You can find us on Facebook. We have dressthedead.com. This is what I do since Forbidden. This is what I've been doing for a long time. It's great fucking band. Yeah, I think Jamie, you'd fucking dig it.
I think Craig might be a shill.
I know, I heard it. I thought it was great.
You think I'm a shill? I just think the shills are endless.
No. I'm just saying because of the name of your song. Dude, I'm just saying because of the name of your song. I'm saying you're really a shill for the flat Earth. I was just kidding.
A shill's a word. I've heard it. But no,
shout out to Paul Fairley here in the chat. He said, "Didn't Rob produce the album?"
Yeah.
Rob Flynn produced the stuff, and we're releasing one song every month for the next. Our fourth song just came out. 4 months, 4 more songs, and then we're supposed to do Dynamo Metal Fest in August. So we'll see if that happens in Holland, which is actually not next to Indonesia. It's in the Netherlands.
It's on the way. It's on the way to South Africa. When I was in the one direction. Dave, where can they find you? And for those people who say, this is a scam to get money or whatever. What do you say about that?
So here's what I say is I had my own solar power development company. I was making a lot of money, doing very, very well. I walked away from it all to spread this message because with the craziness that's going on in the world right now, if we get our freedoms back, the question is how long can we hold it if we're spinning out of control with our mind in a prison, lost in space? And the answer is we're never going to get our freedom back. But if people wake up to this, which is the reason they're trying to hide it, we can take it back overnight. But people are literally suffering from Stockholm syndrome because they're defending their captors. So the app is $2.99. Go read the reviews on it. It's the highest rated app in the store. Everyone friggin' loves it. And that's it. Like if you buy a Starbucks coffee, you're going to piss it away in 20 minutes, the app you have for the rest of your life, and it'll feed you information so you can go check it out yourself. Wait, last thing is this is all about controlling our mind. Don't let them control your mind with cartoons. These are all cartoons. They're controlling you with cartoons. You're not a child. You're an adult. Use your God-given common senses and stop believing the nonsense that you've been programmed to defend.
All right,
you are fascinating fucking
Dave,
guys. What you
yeah,
are.
seriously, thank you, man. This is, hey, all I know is that I don't know, but I'm here to learn, and I appreciate everybody's time. And what was that? What was the album title that I got to steal from the beginning? Dave, what was it?
Well, I don't know.
You have the power to.
The belief is the enemy of knowing. And listen, if the Google is hiding on Android, they're hiding my my app. So the best way to find it is at theflatearthpodcast.com. You could also listen to my podcast, The Flat Earth Podcast, The Flat Earth Podcast Instagram, and my YouTube channel. Lots of short videos there. DITRH. It's just the initials for Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole. But the best thing is get the app, check it out, and read the reviews. The reviews will convince you that the earth is flat alone.
Will do. And thanks everybody from Patreon. And Dave, thanks for supporting the Patreon. I support yours as well. Thanks everybody who came from Patreon. Sorry we didn't get to your questions, but we'll schedule another time for both of you guys, and then we'll get to the Patreon questions.
And anybody out there listening that has an audience, any music people out there that want to talk flat earth, invite me on info@theflatearthpodcast.com. I'll go on any show. I'll talk to anybody that has common sense.
Great. I appreciate it. And we will be back. I don't know when, but Brian's he's fuming in the chat here, but listen, hey, I like that you draw this passion out of people. Yeah. And I appreciate it, because we got to do more of this, discuss ideas no matter how crazy they are.
I ask people, if you think that I'm crazy, give me one. What's your number one proof of the globe? Number one proof of the globe. You don't have one. You don't.
I've shot a gun really far, and to do that, you need to calculate the circumference of the earth.
100% false. Oh, we have gunnery people from the Navy, from the Army, that talk about they never calculate that in. Now, when they're shooting something 100 miles away, which they're targeting with a pencil thin laser beam, it should be 6,000 feet below the curve, but they can see another and one ship can laser target another ship a mile over 100 miles away. 6,000 feet of water should be in between them, but it's not. And they only calculate for drop, not curvature, not sideways spin.
So American Sniper is bullshit, right? The movie, because I mean, they didn't even work hard to make the baby look real. Like, the baby looked so fake. Like, the baby looked faker than the moon landing. And have you seen it,
dude? So when a sniper is looking at somebody, he's got to figure out what angle, where he is, what latitude he is, what angle he's shooting at, and then he's got the guy in the scope. He's like, "Hey, got him in the scope. He's got him in the scope. I got to move 2 feet to the left, and then it's gonna hook around and hit him." Nonsense. It's all nonsense. The Coriolis is nonsense.
All right, we'll take one more question from the chat, and then we got to go. Ryan Marie says, can someone explain to me how the U.S. government can get away with the round earth conspiracy, but Bill Clinton can't get away with a blowjob? That's another meme. They can't even keep a blowjob secret, right? That is all out there on purpose. That's all out there on purpose. And half the people, maybe even more in the government, have no idea the earth is flat. The distraction. They're the
just
distraction.
Puppets. They're just puppets. That's a meme. It's literally a meme at this point. They can't even keep a blowjob a secret. Nonsense.
I want to unwrap so much more next time, and I want to really delve into we started to go there, and I want to go there more, Jamie. I really want to go there more.
Yeah, we will schedule it with Brian and you for sure. I agree.
I'm into it.
Thank you guys. I appreciate the time. Have a good rest of your night. Thank you everybody for Patreon. We'll be back soon. Bye.
That was great.
He loves leaving before he says bye.